Welcome to Sociology, and we're looking at the chapter on society, social structure, and social interactions. And we're going to do this in two parts. So we'll get started with the social structure and social interaction, which are fundamental parts of living in a society. Understanding the components of social structure and sociological explanations about the rules that guide social interaction can help us understand our behavior and the behavior of others. Social structure gives us the ability to interpret the social situations that we encounter. For example, we expect our family to care for us, our schools to educate us, and our police to protect us. When our circumstances change dramatically, most of us feel an acute sense of anxiety because we don't know what to expect or what is expected of us. This chapter may be more manageable to relate to, as we all play roles and have statuses, so we can think about our own lives as we explore this chapter. So let's begin with social structure. Social structure provides the framework within which we interact with others. Now, at a macro level, remember this is the big picture level looking at all elements of society. Social structure is the stable pattern of social relationships that exist within a particular group or a particular society. This structure includes social institutions, groups, statuses, roles, and norms. And we're going to look at each of those. It provides a map for our encounters, but it may also limit our options by creating boundaries that define which person are on the inside and which are on the outside. Social structures, we're going to begin by looking at it at the macro level. At the macro level of all societies, certain basic activities routinely occur. Social institutions are the means by which these basic needs are met. Now, the functionalist theorists, they emphasize that social institutions exist because they perform 5 essential tasks: replacing members, so having children; teaching new members, socialization; producing, distributing, and consuming goods and services, things that we buy; preserving order; and providing and maintaining a sense of purpose. That is somewhat what the functionalists view as the glue that holds society together. Now, conflict theorists, they also believe that social institutions are originally organized to meet basic societal needs. However, they argue that social institutions maintain the privilege of the wealthy and the powerful while contributing to the powerlessness of others. With social structures, there are boundaries. What defines us as in and what defines us as out. Social marginality, or the state of being part insider and part outsider, can result and can be followed by stigmatization, anything which devalues social identity, so that disqualifies an individual from full acceptance. So, for example, a convicted criminal wearing a prison uniform is an example of a person who has been stigmatized. The uniform says that the person has done something wrong and should not be allowed unsupervised outside the prison walls. Now, people who are homeless are marginalized in our society, and we might notice and see those examples much more frequently. Now, having defined social structure, we can now consider the components of social structure. The component parts of social structure considers the groups of structures, how these structures define what we need to know and adopt in a manner that fits in and supports society. So let's start exploring the component parts. And we're going to begin with status. Now, we have to be clear. Status is a socially defined position in a group or society characterized by certain expectations, rights, and duties. The statuses of professional athletes, rock musicians, professors, college students, and homeless persons all exist exclusive or separate of the specific individuals who occupy those social positions. Again, for example, although thousands of new students arrive on college campuses each year to occupy the status of a first-year student, the status of a college student and the expectations attached to that position has remained relatively unchanged except in the last 3 years, which I'm sure if you're a student at Georgian College, you know that. We've had a pandemic, so all of our classes that used to be just in class have gone online, and that was basically a huge change. Now, the term status does not refer to high-level positions only, and that's an important distinction. Sociologists use it to refer to all socially defined positions. One may have a status set. A status set is made up of all the statuses that a person occupies at a given time. A person may occupy and be a psychologist, a professor, a wife, a mother, a sister, a Roman Catholic, a school volunteer, an Ontario resident, a French Canadian, all of which are different statuses or status. Now, there's two major subcategories of statuses. There's the ascribed status. Ascribed status is a social position conferred on a person at birth or received involuntarily later in life. Marie, for example, is a female born to a French-Canadian set of parents. She was assigned these statuses at birth. She didn't choose them, but they were associated with her at birth. Now, achieved statuses are what you might think they are. They are the social position a person assumes voluntarily as a result of personal choice, personal merit, or through your own direct effort. Now, this could include things as your occupation, your education, income are thought to be gained as a result of personal ability or successful competition. Most occupational positions in modern society are achieved statuses. Ascribed statuses have a significant influence on the achieved status that we occupy. Because included in the ascribed status would be ethnicity, gender, and age that can affect each person's opportunity to acquire certain achieved statuses. Now, in addition to achieved and ascribed status, there is what's known as a master status, a term used to describe a person's most important status or that a person occupies. It dominates all the individual's other statuses and is the overriding ingredient determining a person's general social position. Being poor or rich is a master status that influences many other aspects of life, including one's health, education, and life opportunities. Historically, the most common master status for women have related to the position in the family, such as daughter, wife, or mother. For men, occupation has usually been the most important status, although occupation is increasingly a master status for many women as well. Master statuses confer high or low levels of personal worth and dignity on people. These are not characteristics that we inherently possess. They are basically things that we gain through or are derived from the statuses that we occupy and the way that we play those roles. Now, you've heard this term, and we'll look at the significance of it, status symbols. Status symbols are material signs that inform others of a person's specific status. In North American society, people who have made it frequently want simple symbols to inform everybody else of what they've accomplished. For example, just wearing a wedding ring proclaims that a person is married. Owning a Rolls Royce announces that someone has just made it. I've had myself a Rolls Royce, or I have a Bugatti. I am all that in a bag of chips. Status symbols for those with homes and the homeless may have different meanings. Among affluent persons, a full shopping cart in a grocery store and bags of merchandise from expensive department stores indicate a lofty financial position. By contrast, among the homeless, bulging shopping bags and overloaded shopping carts suggest a completely different status. Now, we occupy a status. However, we play roles. Status and roles are related. Roles have status. How well or how correctly we play our roles can demonstrate high status or low status. If we perform well, we have high status. We perform poorly, low status. So let's touch on what are roles. Roles are not what we eat. They can be, but this is different. R-O-L-E, a role is a set of behavioral expectations associated with a given status. We occupy a status, we play a role. So therefore, there would be something that if we play a role, then there are role expectations. A group or society's definition of the way a specific role ought to be played. So roles have expectations. They also have role performance, or essentially how a person actually plays the role. Role performance does not always match role expectations. Some statuses have role expectations that are highly specific, such as a surgeon or a university professor. Other statuses, such as being a friend or a significant other, have less structured expectations. The role expectations are tied to the status of student are more specific than those being tied to what it is to be a friend. Role expectations are typically based on a range of acceptable behavior rather than on strictly defined standards. Now, it is possible, if there is not a clarity about what the role is, that you may have role ambiguity. So when the expectations associated with a role are not very clear, role ambiguity is what you'll have, or role conflict. This is going to occur when we have incompatible role demands, and they're placed on a person by two or more statuses held at the same time. It may be difficult to balance them. It could produce role strain. Role strain is when these incompatible demands are placed on a single status that the person occupies, and it's difficult to maintain it. It may translate into role exit. This occurs when people disengage from social roles that have been central to their self-identity. There are 4 stages of role exit. First, there's doubt. Then we search for alternatives. And then there's a turning point, a point by which we've made a decision and we create a new identity, which is our 4th. Given our roles and status, we will at times experience role ambiguity, role conflict, role strain, and sometimes role exit. Now, the last element that we'll look at in terms of social structure will be groups. Groups are our last component of social structure. A social group consists of 2 or more people who interact frequently and share a common identity and a feeling of interdependence. Interdependence is not independence, want to do it by yourself and alone, or dependent, I need your help and I can't do it by myself. Interdependence is that you work together and collaborate. Groups are another important component of social structure. It's throughout our lives. Most of us participate in groups. This includes our families, our childhood friends, to our university or college classes, to our work, our community organizations, even to our society. There are two forms of groups that sociologists are interested in. First is what's known as the primary group. The primary group is a small, less specialized group in which members engage in face-to-face, emotion-based interactions over a long period of time. The secondary group, that's a larger group, more specialized group in which members engage in much more impersonal, goal-oriented relationships, and often for a limited time. Now, typically, primary groups will include our family, our close friends, and maybe some school and work-related peer groups. Schools, churches, and corporations are an example of secondary groups. Groups can have what is known as social solidarity or cohesion. It relates to a group's ability to maintain itself in the face of obstacles. Social solidarity exists when social bonds, attraction, or other forces hold the members of the group in interaction over a period of time. Now, our social networks are a series of social relationships that link an individual to others. This does not have to be face-to-face. It includes all those we rely on and are connected to in a variety of different ways. Now, lastly, in groups, we can also look at formal organizations. Now, formal organizations are highly structured groups formed for the purpose of completing certain tasks and achieving specific goals. Now, many of us are going to spend most of our time in a formal organization, such as universities and colleges, corporations, and governments. Formal organizations are an important component of social structure in all industrialized societies. We expect such organizations to educate us, to solve our social problems such as crime and homelessness, and provide work opportunities. Now, next, what we're going to explore is the concept of social institutions. So social institutions is a set of organized beliefs and rules that establish how a society will attempt to meet those basic social needs. Now, social institutions are the means by which these basic needs are met. At the macro level of all societies, certain basic activities routinely occur. Children are born, they're socialized, goods and services are produced and distributed, order is preserved, and a sense of purpose is maintained. Now, in the past, these needs centered around 5 basic social institutions: the family, religion, education, the economy, and government or politics. Now, today, we can add mass media, sports, science and medicine, the military are also considered social institutions. Now, I'm sure some of you might be wondering, and good for you if you are, aren't social institutions just another group? Well, a group is composed of specific, identifiable people, family members of school, whereas an institution is a standardized way of doing something. Now, when we talk about one's family, we are referring to a specific family, a group. When we refer to a family as a social institution, we're talking about ideologies and standardized patterns of behavior that organize family life, how to be a successful family. So, for example, the family as a social institution contains certain statuses organized into well-defined relationships, such as husband, wife, parent, child, brother, sister, and so forth. Specific families do not always conform to these particular ideologies and behavior patterns. Functionalist theory suggests that social institutions exist because they perform essential tasks. And this is repeating what I mentioned earlier. They replace members. Society and groups must have socially approved ways of replacing members of the family when they move away or they die. So one of the social institutions there that takes care of that is family. The second element is teaching new members. People who are born into our society or move into our society must learn the group's values and customs. Again, family, sometimes education, media, even government. The third, producing and distributing and consuming goods and services. All societies must provide and produce or distribute goods and services for all their members. And that's with the social institution known as the economy. The fourth is preserving order. Every group or society must preserve order within its boundaries to protect itself from attack by outsiders. Again, in terms of social institutions, we could be looking at government, state, military. The fifth, which was the fifth element from the functionalists, is providing and maintaining a sense of purpose. To maintain, to motivate people to cooperate with one another, a sense of purpose is needed. And here we find religion and cultural institutions, even sports, having a role here. Now, conflict theorists, they argue that many social institutions do not work for the common good of everyone in society. Their example would be that the government maintains the privileges of the wealthy and powerful while while contributing to the powerlessness of others. Conflict theorists agree with functionalists that social institutions are originally organized to meet the basic social need. However, they do not agree that social institutions work for the common good of everyone. As we know, some families abuse children. Those in power tend to support the wealthy, but not the marginalized. Religion often controls people rather than giving them meaning and freedom. Okay, that's the first part. I think we've gotten through most of the sort of bits and pieces here, and we'll carry on with part 2 next week. So keep up the good work, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.